Welcome to Being at Home with George and this idea of creating the possibility of embracing whatever comes up, saying yes to it, and at the same time generating hope. And as we talked about before, we generate the hope, but the hope without action is not really hope. So we generate the hope, but then we have to act, enhancing or planting the seeds for the outcome that we want. And so this week, we're in an interesting time where there's a lot of turbulence and a lot of uncertainty and whatnot, especially with folks going back to school. And I think it's important for us to understand which way is true north, because with all of the turbulence, with all of the digital echo and everybody focusing on what's wrong and wanting to play the blame game and denying, what's actually happening, that we need a way to stay locked in the true north in spite of all of the turbulence and all of the noise and clutter. And one of the ways that I found really helpful is this idea of the still small voice within, which knows the difference between what's helpful, what's not helpful, between right and wrong. And so we have to find pockets of stillness so that the noise and the clutter doesn't drown out that still small voice, that inner wisdom that we all have that can be easily drowned out. And so we really need to understand how to access it, how to be in touch with it. And it's interesting because sometimes we have to behave our way into proper thinking and we have to reflect on experience and think about it just on the level of thought. I know last week I talked about this idea of we become what we think about and we reap what we sow. And so we think of our mind like a pasture that a farmer has and that it's fertile. And so whatever thoughts we plant, if we think of thoughts as plants, if we plant corn or we plant nightshade, it doesn't matter. The ground doesn't matter. The mind doesn't matter in that level. Whatever we plant, it's going to bear fruit. It's going to be plentiful. So this idea of we investing in our thoughts or we spending. And spending would be like planting nightshade, or poison versus investing, which is talking about what kind of future do we want to live into? And even though we may not know what it is, we know that positive thoughts lead to positive reactions, negative thoughts lead to negative reactions, according to Herman Vincent Peale. And I think that's a lawfulness to that. And so this idea of understanding that every thought we have is not neutral, it's either planting seeds of goodness, of positivity, or negativity, or whatnot. And so when I think about it, I noticed in the news, there's a lot of stuff about, there's a lot of blame and shame and just focusing on what's wrong and not just really saying, okay, what we really need to do from moment to moment, if this moment does set up the next moment, how do we plant seeds of helpfulness? How do we start to understand this is helpful, this is not helpful. This thought is creating turmoil or more noise and clutter. These thoughts are planting peace, or at least we're moving, we're progressing in a way toward greatness or goodness, even though we don't know a lot, but we know this moment sets up the next moment. And so can we entertain these investing thoughts instead of blaming, to be able to be still and know and listen to that inner voice that knows, that small, still voice that knows when we're off or when we're not being as kind as we can be. And it's interesting for me because I think of myself as being very calm and compassionate and whatnot. And there's times, especially recently, when I'm in my car and I'm driving and I have an idea about whether the person in front of me is going too slow or too fast. And so it's an opportunity for me to just notice that that person is not doing anything. It's me feeling like I'm in a hurry, or me feeling like I have control over the other person, which in actuality I don't. If I'm spending thoughts, that I'm talking about what are they doing? Why don't they move out of the way and let me get by? Or I can just notice that, yes, when I have opportunity to pass this person, I will. But in the meantime, can I invest thoughts and just focusing on, okay, I'm here, I'll get to where I need to go. And how do I say true north? How do I stay in my own lane where I'm not generating or entertaining anger or frustration or fear, just noticing that, okay, there's a little tension there, and can I just embrace it? Can I create space like we talk about? Can I embrace it? Just notice it, that I'm impatient instead of projecting it onto other people or allowing the external environment to control myself, when in actuality, I can always just think about, okay, breathe and just be with it and not react to it and not make that person wrong, not make me wrong, but just noticing that I have to find that stillness, that still small voice inside that says everything's going to be okay. When the time comes, you'll get by. And sure enough, the person will turn off or something else will happen because of how I'm maintaining my cool. Like I like to talk about the eye of the hurricane. And we've had tropical storms, and some of us have gotten a lot of rain and whatnot. So there's a lot of turmoil. There's a lot of things that are happening that are not so helpful. But can we create space between stimulus and response and understand that we are planting seeds for tomorrow? So can we plant the positive seeds? And I'm not saying denying the challenges. I'm saying embracing them and look at it as, okay, what's the lesson here? What's the most helpful response I can have to this situation? And sometimes it's just feeling what I need to feel, letting it go, and then doing what I know to do in the next moment, which is, okay, to breathe, to feed myself, to be kind when I can, and that maybe help someone else. And so we have to figure this out. Are we investing, are we spending, and are we denying or are we blaming and not taking responsibility for the thoughts that we have? So for me, there's a teaching I got from Neville Goddard that talks about think only of the lovely and the things of good report. So even though something happens that's negative, can I focus on the positive? Can I focus on what's the lesson I need to learn, and how can I plant a way forward where I'm not losing my composure and I'm feeling excited about what I can do given what's happening? So I have to be able to go back to my philosophy about the 4 A's, about the idea of awareness, this ability to have mirror mind, whatever's happening, noticing it, and then accepting it, which is a challenge, which means, yeah, I don't like it, but once I can accept it, once I can get out of the blame and denial and say, yes, I don't like this, and this is what it is, and once I accept it, then I can do the compassionate action. And sometimes the action is inaction, or just noticing, okay, this too shall pass, and how do I relate to it in a way where I'm learning and I can change it from a roadblock to a stepping stone. And so that's it, the awareness, the acceptance, or whatever it is, and then the compassionate action. And sometimes the action may be praying, or the action may be saying, okay, not now, but let's focus on where we want to go. What future do we want to live into, and what are the thoughts and the feelings and the actions that I can engage in that progress me in that direction of where we want to go. So that means if I make a mistake or if I lose my cool, I can still step back and say, I'm sorry, and then reset, reconnect with my purpose of being kind, being supportive, and also being loving, but also being helpful to myself and others. And so to me, that's what it comes down to, is we're in this strange, funky period of the summer's just about to end and the autumn is going to begin, or the fall, or school. And each ending is a new beginning. So even though we have challenges in front of us, if we can just create the possibility of embracing whatever comes up, say yes to it, and then relate to it in a way that empowers us, that excites us, and moves us forward, and not losing our cool or losing our groove. We have to be able to be still and know and understand true north is, in my mind, making investments that's going to create fruit, corn, not poison, moving forward. So the idea is, how can we invest in our thoughts and our actions and our feelings in ways that create a future that we want to live into, a future that is helpful, a way of accessing that still small voice that's easily drowned out by creating these pockets of stillness where we can just be still and know.